Good afternoon or good morning. I'm not sure of the exact time, folks. I'm here with my buddy Vangel Patarov and my other buddy, because I've got more than one buddy, Peter Surbinov. And it's a famous name, and boy, it's famous because it's deserved. Peter's dad, Peter's father, was one of the greats of that post-World War II generation of activists. Folks, I didn't want to talk about this, but seeing as Peter is here, careful, as we say in Macedonia. So yesterday I want to thank Ico Nadovski for, I think, doing a fantastic job yesterday at Sveti Georgi in Epping. It was a commemoration of Ilinden. All the speakers were good, the poems were fantastic. I think it was well organized and a great tribute to our real Ilindensi of 1903. Folks, most of the people there were older like myself, but there was a reason for that, folks. It's on a Friday. And a lot of you out there are working, a lot of students are at school and so on. But next year, it's going to be on a Saturday. And let's make next year's Ilinden commemoration something to really remember next year. That's Sveti Georgi. Now, I was privileged enough to speak. Ico asked me to speak on the heroic generation of the post-war era, the people who raised money for the hospital, who started cultural groups, all kinds, even an old drama group, sports club, and you name it. Those people were and still are my heroes. Now, folks, we're speaking mainly, I guess, about the political activists. Now, I don't want to forget all the people who are interested in sport and cultural stuff. So, where we were yesterday was amazing, and a little further south, we have another amazing old institution from the 40s, the Preston Macedonia Football Club. Now, all that was done in the past. I want to pay my respects to those people. So this is the speech I gave, folks, because I'm running out of things to say. I may as well share what I said. I said, good morning, everyone. I want to thank Ico Nadovski for inviting me to say something on this very important day for Macedonia and us Macedonians. Ilinden is, for many of us Macedonians, the most significant event in our modern history. I'm one of those that feels that is the case. So I feel privileged and honored to be here today to commemorate it and to honor all our people who have fought and some given their lives for our people's rights to establish a nation in our homeland, Macedonia. We don't want anyone else's land. We are unlike the Greeks, the Bulgarians, once upon a time the Serbs, now the Albanians, all claiming Macedonia as theirs. We don't want any of their stuff. We're happy just with Macedonia. So, folks, every time I go to Sveti Georgi, I feel a really deep sense of pride in our people, in our culture, and the activists and their supporters through the ages who are responsible for what has become out there a fantastic community center, cultural, historic, religious. In my opinion, it's the jewel in the crown of the Macedonian community in Victoria, and the most appropriate place to hold this commemoration because there is a statue of Goce there. Now, we have other wonderful churches and wonderful complexes. I am not to belittle them. I just think that because of its history is probably the place where we should all commemorate. So today I want to pay my respects to the people who've been involved in the foundation and ongoing development of this magnificent project. I urge people to come to visit it. But next Ilinden is on a Saturday. Come and be a part of it. So Itzel said, talk about those people, and I'll try. I've mentioned what they have done. Soccer clubs, social clubs, political organisations, fundraising, you name it. Now, I only know what my father really achieved, and he was young compared to the other guys. He was probably the youngest there. So I will mention that later. So because I didn't know enough about that generation, other than what I've experienced through my life and my father's activism, I asked a friend, and I'll name him, I asked Itzel. I said, Itzel, you've written a book. You're better qualified to tell me the list that we want to honour. He sent me a list, and at the end he said, etc., etc., etc. Now, we made a joke out of it, but in reality, the etc., etc. is an important part of that list, because we couldn't include everyone, and we couldn't even include just the leaders, the presidents and such. But, folks, with apologies to anyone that we may have missed, here are a few of the names of some of those incredible people who dedicate their lives to our community. Peter Božanin, Risto Altin, Stojan Srbinov, Ilo Malkov, Kirill Angelkov, Mik Velovski, Kirill Murjev, Kosta Radin, Vasil Rendev, Tanas Krlevski, etc., etc., etc. It is only part of the story, that list. Those activists weren't the only people who were responsible for the achievements of our community. They were certainly the leaders, driven by their love for our people and our nation. But generals alone don't win battles. Generals need legions, phalanxes, soldiers, foot soldiers. All kinds of different activities are needed for a community to have such fantastic facilities and have great clubs. From presidents to just a paid membership. If you're involved in a Macedonian organisation, you were doing something worthwhile. Now, folks, I was really proud of my father, that he was included in such a list. Out of that list, I knew Stojan Srbinov, Peter's dad, very well, because our fathers were friends, and I'd met Risto Altin, and he was one of the great. There's no doubt about that. So I'd like to speak a little bit about my father's story, because that's the one that I know. When I was a kid, I said to my dad, I said, look, you're not really a believer in God and all that stuff, but you keep on being involved building churches. And I'll just mention here, my father was part of the original church in Fitzroy, part of that. There's another list if you go out there, and you see all the people who donated and who were, shall we say, the activists in the formation of that first church. So my dad was one of them. The other church he was instrumental in was the one in Geelong, which we used to call Dragoška. But it's not just Dragoška, it's all the Macedonians in Geelong. My dad was so fixated on churches, we've even bought a property in little old Shepparton that was once a Protestant church. It has a meeting room and so on. And I thought it was a good question. I said, you don't believe in God, but you build churches. This is what he told me. He said, listen up. I'm not building those churches for myself. He said, we are building those churches because our community needs a church. A church historically has played an important part in our culture and our identity. I got it. My respect actually grew when he told me that, because then I realized, what's an activist? An activist is someone who helps the community. by doing stuff that the community feels needs to be done. An activist is a servant of the community. He identifies what the community needs and then sets about doing it. So when I was a kid, I did a few things, like sweeping the floor of the hall of our order in Shepparton monthly order, or helping put up the nets at the soccer grounds and stuff, going as an interpreter wherever he needed me. So this is the lesson that I learned from that. Things don't just happen, folks, because it's time for them to happen, because it's written in the stars, because God ordained it. No. Things happen because people make things happen. Human activity makes things happen. Not dreaming, not actually getting out there and doing it. So when we're in Geelong, September 1958, my father proposed that our community there form a football club or a soccer club. He'd already, as I mentioned, contacted Altin and Co. and was involved with the church. So one of our friends whose house we were staying in, I'll mention him, Jim Angelovich. He's called Angelovich because his father came out here during the Serb occupation in the 30s. We were staying at their house, and Jimmy said to him, Vasily said, how are we going to put a team together? There aren't 11 Macedonian young men who can play soccer here. That's how small the community was. So my father said, doesn't matter, we'll find people. And he did. They recruited players from the other immigrant groups, mainly from the ones whose language my dad understood. But it was called Macedonia. I think it was one of the first ethnic clubs in Geelong. It's still there. Now, that wasn't the only soccer club that he was involved in. That club in Geelong now, it's called Geelong, I think. But it started off as Macedonia. Looking back at the achievements of that generation and all the others since, I think the third and final lesson for our community is every activity, every goal and project, it needs an organization, a group of people getting together, working, committed people working towards a well-defined common goal, one that benefits our people and our rights. I want to also remind you folks, I'll keep talking about this because it's important. That generation of activists and members of clubs, they inspired a whole new generation of activists and so on. So it wasn't just the original guys, they started it. But when they left us, if there weren't others to pick up the baton, we wouldn't have anything. So as a community, we have stepped up. We have continued those institutions and expanded on them that the post-World War II greats of our community started. Now, there are too many of those people to name. A lot of them are presidents and secretaries of human rights committees, writers. They are all my dear friends. There's another list. There's many other lists. We could talk about sporting lists and cultural lists. So I don't know enough to be able to do that. But what I'm trying to say, people, is engage as a member, not just as a Facebook contributor, not just as a critic, but as a member who actually puts his little bit of money where his mouth is. Finally, folks, I want to leave you on with two diametrically imposed feelings that I have. Firstly, folks, in 2016, I went to Ovčarani to the Ilinden celebrations, and people of Ovčarani, you are heroic. What you have done is incredible. They were the spark that's ignited a Macedonia wildfire. where every village in Macedonia now that is a Macedonian village will have Macedonian music as part of their celebration for whatever Saints' Day they celebrate as a village. I never ever thought I'd see that happen in my lifetime. And having lived in Athens in the late 70s and felt exactly the oppression, not I personally, but the oppression that our Macedonians were suffering in Ege, I never thought I'd see that. The pride, because when I see them dancing, I also hear them singing. And what are they singing? It's some just folk songs about the village, about love, but they're also singing Macedonian Ilinden and patriot partisan songs. Get that through your head, what's going on there, folks. And now, I want to contrast that with what's going on north of the border, in what used to be the Republic of Macedonia. And in my opinion, will always be called the Republic of Macedonia to those of us, because Macedonia is Nasha, it's our Macedonia. We define what it is, not our enemies, not the lords of the universe in the West. Unfortunately, in our republic, created by the heroic struggle of the partisans, Asnomera, all I see is despair. All I see is sellout politicians. All I see is people making excuses for why we can't just be Macedonia. And we have political parties there, two main political parties who really, on this issue, they have let us down. So, because of what's going on in Ege, the hope that springs to mind from Ege, and the critical situation that our people in the Republic are, we need to do something in the diaspora in defense of our right, our human right to be Macedonians and to have our own nation. Thank you, folks. It's a bit long, but thank you very much.